Let's go. YouTube, what's going on? Hey, so we are back. We are ready. We are overly committed to making these videos on time and uploading them late. It's your boy Lucid. We're here to break down week 7 college football, Saturdays in the fall, any given Saturday. Yeah, there's some weeknight games now because if you weren't tracking, starting last Thursday began a 45-day stretch in which there will be a football game played on national television in the United States of America, whether it be NFL or Division I FBS. So with that information, let us all rejoice and let's get into this week's breakdowns. I'm going to talk about some big games. We're going to do some weekly locks that I'm making a comeback, okay? And how am I going to do that? Well, I'm breaking some traditions here, okay? No, not the one you're thinking of. I'm still maintaining my methodology of I will pick one game I feel very confident on, one game I think is a toss-up, and one game that I have no idea what's going to happen. That said, we are going to claw back up the mountain and secure a win on this locks board by the end of the season. And how are we going to do that? Well, we're going to have to be risky, okay? We're going to have to take some shots. We're going to have to go boldly where others would dare tread. And how am I going to do that? I'm still going to pick a game that I feel pretty strongly on. And that essentially means it's guaranteed money, right? It is a ranked team taking on an unranked team. The other two matchups, however, my coin toss and no clue, two of the most high-profile matchups for Week 7. Let's talk about it. Hey, so I am here today on Thursday recording this for reference, and there's some games that already took place this week. I in the past have been rather honest when I find myself in a position having to essentially highlight a game that has taken place that I don't really know much about. And one such game was the Tuesday night matchup of Liberty versus FIU. And to say that I don't know much about it would be somewhat misleading. Like, I'm aware of the I guess sort of floors and ceilings of certain teams to a certain extent. But where this game I'm kind of just like in the gray is that I don't really know much about either roster. I just know what they've done on the field so far. And I'll start by saying that the outcome of this game was a little surprising to me, even though maybe the team that won wasn't. But FIU takes Liberty to overtime, ultimately losing 31-24. And I'll say this, I couldn't tell you, all right, before reading this, Keon Jenkins over here, I couldn't have told you who Liberty's starting quarterback was prior to this game. I'll be honest, right? But I knew Liberty was a better football team than FIU. And FIU came prepared to retroactively prove me wrong, right? And they almost did it, but came up a little bit short. So props to the Flames. This is their first season without. Oh, no. I'm thinking of a different team. My apologies. Their head coach, stand by. I'm going to make sure that I am not completely on the sauce right now because I could have swore. Yeah, Jamie Chadwell, okay, who came from James Madison, if I'm not mistaken. Coastal Carolina. Damn it. Sunbelt, right conference, wrong team. Okay. So, Jamie Chadwell, head coach at Liberty. I like Liberty as a program where they've been recently as compared to FIU. Stacks up very well in their favor. And they go out and they get the dub against all odds. Props to FIU for, taking it to them. hang on to that motivation, hang on to that momentum. This next game, the winner again, like very similar like thread here in terms of my manner of thinking with these two games. I felt pretty confident Jacksonville State was going to win this game. I thought New Mexico State was going to put up more of a fight. I really like Bronco Mendenhall as a head coach for the Aggies. I think he's the right kind of guy with the right kind of attitude to essentially keep that program, or at least build it up to a point where it's not sinking below its floor very often and could find itself regularly overachieving pursuant to expectations. And they kind of came out a little bit strong earlier this season, and getting into conference play and whatnot, I thought just maybe they'd be able to answer a few haymakers from Jacksonville State, and clearly I was wrong. 54-13. This was just never in question. Props to Jacksonville State. They're on a roll right now, doing great things. But talking about things that haven't happened yet, we're talking about Thursday, okay? And what's happening tonight. So James Madison's hosting Coastal Carolina, former school for head coach Jamie Chadwell, as we've established, right? Not James Madison. Odd that those two teams are playing each other this weekend, when I just confused which school provided Liberty with its newest head coach. But in any case, I'll be honest, JMU favored -8 right now. Might be too many points based off of what Coastal Carolina has showed themselves capable of doing this season, if not consistently. Whereas JMU does one thing consistently, and that is score a lot. That said, I'm trying very hard this year to not find myself kind of hedging my bets off of trends, because if there's anything that the sport of college football in particular will show you, it is that betting trends are typically in favor of those who do not observe or at least religiously bet based off of on-field trends. So while I do like JMU in this game, I don't know if their margin of victory is going to be that great, which is why Vegas having the line at -8 right now, I like it. I don't love it. I think Coastal can make this a bit more of a dogfight. But we'll see. Barnett, the quarterback for JMU, doing a lot of great things this year. I believe I drafted him in daily fantasy as well. I have a couple of JMU Western Kentucky people kind of floating around in there. Talking about the La Tech Middle Tennessee game, Louisiana Tech has been playing okay defense. Their offense has been meh. Middle Tennessee has been in every facet of the game so far. So why is Louisiana Tech favored by only 4.5 points at home? I think bettors are onto something here, kind of like with the James Madison game. I think that Middle Tennessee is being devalued more than they should be. There's a little bit of context surrounding why they've been relatively terrible all season. I'm not going to get into it too much. I don't want to make this like a Middle Tennessee podcast. Same as I don't want to make it about Coastal. I'm just kind of give you like a generalized thought that I have about these teams and these lower group of 5, games. I like this line at 4.5. If I was like a Middle Tennessee fan, I'd probably bet it, because if you know what I know about the team, they probably know way more, right? And so the context for them is like infinitely more clear than it is for me or you. So I'll just leave it at that. Like, I would take Middle Tennessee to cover. I don't know if I'd take the outright upset, but I'll take is it the Blue Raiders? Yeah. As for a team that I don't think has any chance, we're talking about the UTEP Miners going up against Western Kentucky. Western Kentucky loves throwing the ball. They're favored by 20 points right now. just sign the dotted line, give me the money, right? Like that's kind of how I feel about this kind of game, which means I'm probably just going to end up fucking being wrong because that tends to happen a lot this year. The stronger I feel emotionally about a game being a certainty, the less likely it is for that outcome to take place. Going on to Friday, we have Northwestern at Maryland. Northwestern. I developed a lisp there temporarily. So Northwestern made a quarterback change in their last game. I like some of the things that I saw from them. Lausch just wasn't getting it done. And so maybe they can go into Maryland and put up a better fight. I'd say if there's a line that I do like in this game, it'd probably be taking the over 45.5 point spread. Because I think whereas Northwestern has shown themselves rather incapable of scoring in previous games, that might be making a turn for the better for them. Whereas Maryland does score points really well. Billy Edwards Jr. is shaping himself out to be a pretty darn good quarterback. Like, so much so that I think a lot of people that were shocked about him getting picked as the starter over MJ Morris coming out of the offseason are probably like, okay, this is making sense now. Like, because I haven't been drafting him in daily fantasy. I did this week. Another team whose quarterback I drafted in daily fantasy, UNLV. Haj Malik Williams has lit a fire for this team with the departure of Sluka, their former starting quarterback. They're favored by 18.5 points against Utah State. The Aggies are terrible. And UNLV, though they had a setback last week in overtime against Syracuse, a lot of people kind of think they got screwed in that game, but a setback for them against a Power 4 opponent, not much of a setback, right? They have aspirations to play for a conference championship in the Mountain West. That's still very much so in front of them and possible. And I expect them to come out and make this 18.5 line potentially look silly. Like, that's how little faith I have in Utah State being able to win this game. And again, because I feel so strongly about it, it's probably a guaranteed dub for Utah State. If not, they're going to cover and make it close, right? A game that in years past, I would have probably had so many opinions about this game with regard to what I thought was going to take place on the field. And I just don't this year. I wish I'd been paying closer attention to Arizona State. I know that they're showing a lot of fight this year with Kenny Dillingham, I believe second year now head coach after leaving Oregon, the offensive coordinator there. And then Utah. This whole Cam Rising quarterback situation has been frustrating at the lowest margin and just like outright infuriating for bettors because love Kyle Whittingham as a coach, but his methodology with reporting injuries is so cryptic and old school that it is impossible to determine ahead of time what's actually going to happen on game day. And so this whole Cam Rising is possible to play, but he also says in his weekly presser, like, oh, we've had a conversation where, we will reach a breaking point where Isaac Wilson has to remain the starter for the remainder of the season in order to maintain continuity and keep the offense in sync. And it's like, kind of sounds like you've already had that conversation. So is it Isaac Wilson or is it Cam Rising? Can't tell you that. Thanks, bro. Utah favored by 5.5. I mean, on the road against Arizona State. Arizona is a tough state to play in. Now pay attention to what I said. I didn't say Arizona State is a tough place to play at because many a team has beaten them at home. But the state of Arizona has this like curse upon it. And if you're a Washington fan like me, you know all too well what I reference here. And that's that, like, even some years with the best Washington teams I've ever seen take the field in my lifetime, they'd go down to Arizona and just completely eat shit. and it's not an uncommon occurrence. I mean, there's when your Oregon is, you know, a playoff caliber team. They go down to Arizona State, and it was Jalen Daniels Jaden Daniels, Heisman Trophy winner for LSU, lights them up with Brandon Ayuk at wide receiver, right? Crazy, 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 crazy. I don't know what's going to happen in this game. Isaac Wilson at quarterback is serviceable for Utah, but not game changing. Arizona State is a spunky little team from what I've been able to gather, and they're at home, so make that one a coin toss. But it's not my lock coin toss for the week. So let's go into Saturday here. We're going to kind of cover some of the bigger ranked games, and then we're going to go talk about the remainder of the top 25. I've given some very strongly worded opinions about the Washington at Iowa game. Yes, I'm a Washington fan. I try to avoid my bias as much as possible, despite the fact that it's plastered behind me, right? But I don't want to make this a Washington podcast, essentially, is what I'm getting at. So South Carolina on the road, going to Tuscaloosa to take on Bama. Does Bama bounce back, right? They're favored by 21 right now, so Vegas certainly seems to think so. And I can understand why people would think that, but this is a team that has every ability to answer the bell and come out there and make South Carolina look silly, if not downright unserviceable. And they're also the team that lost to Vanderbilt last week. So I'll be quite frank with you. Like, this is the University of Alabama, and I'm finding myself in a situation, especially with like a head coach that I know intimately, given where he came from before he went to Bama. All that said, this is one that I'm kind of like not touching because we don't know what Alabama under Kalen DeBoer does in this situation. Nobody does, right? How do they respond? I know what he was able to do at Washington, but as far as Bama, with that culture, with that pride, all things considered, there's factors in play here that we haven't seen for 17 years, whatever it was for Nick Saban in his tenure there. So, yeah, I mean, we'll see. A game I am pretty confident in, though. I feel like Clemson's about to go make Wake Forest look silly. Wake Forest coming off a very emotional come-from-behind win against NC State last weekend. They are not a great team, but they put up tremendous fight in that game, and Clemson's just been rolling, right? And so, okay, maybe a spot where they're just kind of looking past their opponent. Wake Forest is able to surprise them, maybe win the turnover battle, and then make the 20.5 point line disappear. It's not where my money's going. So, yeah, no, I think Cade Klubnik, I think Jake Brenningstool, Phil Maffa, Anthony Williams, I think the boys in orange are going to do some great things. Let me ask the group at large here. You go on the road, College Station, as a top 10 ranked team playing a top 25 ranked Texas A&M, and you lose in resounding fashion, answering all of the questions that people had been clamoring about since the beginning of the season, since the preseason, that is, of can you be what we think you are? And the answer was no. So how do you answer that? You go take on UMass in their building, all right? And you show them what Tiger football looks like. Because, God damn it, you're in the SEC. And this just means more to you. Missouri's going to UMass. The line is currently Missouri minus 28. UMass, for my money, is one of like the 5 worst FBS teams in the United States of America. And the fact that Missouri is only a 7.5 point difference favorite over UMass compared to Clemson over Wake Forest, who is literally a conference matchup in the Power Four. That's silly. I think it's funny. Missouri's going to win the game, but their stock definitely took a hit last week, to say the least. Like I said, we're gonna talk ranked. So okay, Red River Shootout. Lot of talking heads and columnists and beat writers and podcasters. Darn those guys. Everybody feels pretty confident that Texas is gonna run away with this game, that it's gonna be a pick your points kind of thing, and Oklahoma doesn't have much to offer. And if there's anything I know about this rivalry, is that almost never freaking happens. Okay. The Oklahoma getting shut out games, like those don't happen very often. Not to say never, because they do. They just don't happen very often. So where am I kind of going with this? I'll keep it simple. I would never, until the rivalry takes a definitive and pronounced turn in a certain direction, and I don't mean, because Oklahoma fans will probably come at me for this, I am aware of the fact that Oklahoma has dominated this rivalry in the last few decades. So I'm not saying take a drastic turn in direction of one team winning. I'm saying take a drastic turn in terms of like both teams, whichever team takes a foothold, the margin of victory is just gargantuan on a consistent basis, because that hasn't happened, right? Even during the dominant years of Oklahoma. So that said, I am not going to really talk about the 14.5 point spread for Texas as a favorite, because I don't feel confident choosing anybody in this game. This game is, you want to know, like the SEC slogan of "it just means more." Well, these two teams are in the SEC now, and this game legitimately means more to both of these squads. Okay, like there is generationally certified hatred on the sidelines this coming Saturday. And I'm not putting any money or any leans towards it, because this is always a great football game. And I don't want to be party to an assumption that says this great game that I've known and loved for years will be anything other than a great game. So let it be a great game and let the chips fall where they lie, and we'll see what happens when the dust settles. Somewhat similarly, just kind of lacking like the traditional rivalry aspect of it, a rematch of the 2016, actually 17 Rose Bowl. Penn State, somewhat similarly, going on the road to Los Angeles to take on the USC Trojans. Penn State a 4-point favorite right now. So they're on the road, which means they'd be about a touchdown favorite on a neutral field, and then probably 10 and a hook at home, if I had to guess. It would honestly, with what Happy Valley presents as a home field advantage, in my personal opinion, as opposed to the Coliseum, who's kind of struggled to fill itself, I would say Penn State would probably creep closer to an 11-12 if this was being played in Happy Valley. But aspects of this game that I think are interesting, right, is that defense is going to be key here. USC's offensive line, especially at the tackle position, has been struggling against pass rush. Minnesota bullied them last week, and Minnesota's nowhere near the best pass rush that they're going to face this season. Penn State might be. So there's a guy, I'm not sure if you're aware, his name's Abdul, last name Carter. He's probably going to be a first round draft pick next winter, or this coming winter. USC needs to contain him. The ball needs to come out quick. I'd like to see a very similar game script from Lincoln Riley that Jed Fish ran against Michigan last week in Seattle, because you're probably going to need something like that. The problem is that I don't know if USC is going to be able to run as successfully as Washington did against Michigan. Now, here's the thing. Not a lot of people thought that Washington was going to run as successfully as they did against Michigan before the game either. So Woody Marks could have himself a day if Lincoln Riley is able to check in the moment, recognize blitz packages, and potentially take advantage of it. I don't know. I don't know. This isn't even like a coin toss game for me because like one side of my heart wants to say that this game bodes well for Penn State just because of the defensive mismatch, right? But their offense under Andy Kotelnicki, that's supposed to be this much more explosive being slash entity, hasn't exactly taken shape. Because they look better, but not like not the better we were promised, or essentially the better that people hoped for. So I hope I'm clear with that. Yeah, I just don't know. Like the 50 and a half, I think I take the under in this. I think USC actually managed to get some stops. I think Penn State gets some stops too. Um, yeah, no, I think if there's a way I do feel about the game, it's that. I think that I take the under pretty soundly. Um, if I had to give a lean right now, I probably do side with Penn State. And I think more on the nose here than any of the previous times I've referenced it. Like this is kind of one of those ones where it's like if I'm this wishy-washy about it and I'm trying to say I lean a certain way, probably take the other side. Maybe take USC because mm, I don't feel confident in that one. I don't. A game I do feel pretty confident about. Ashton Daniels is coming back for Stanford at quarterback on the road. You know, against Notre Dame. I have faded Notre Dame. I still do. Um, but Stanford's not beating them at home. It's just not happening. They have essentially schemed up a Riley Leonard playbook to this point that has made him look effective for what his skill set is, but it is not something that I see being a long term success plan for Notre Dame this season. Okay. Because, well, Riley Leonard could, end up staying in Notre Dame for another year of eligibility. I don't know if they go shopping in the transfer portal if that's the case. They did just lose Deuce Knight to Auburn, um, top one of the top quarterback recruits for the 2025 class. So be interesting to see what they do at that position in the offseason. But I think right now, this season, they have found something that is going to be serviceable enough to beat the less talented teams that they place or that they play, sorry. The 22.5 point spread seems a little silly. Like Ashton Daniels and Alec Iomanner can score. I know this Notre Dame secondary is the bright spot on its team, and I do have a ton of respect for it, but 22 and a half? Okay. We'll see. We'll see. Taking Notre Dame. I don't know. I don't love the points though. Um, Cal coming off of the heartbreaking loss to Miami at home, college game day in the building, going to Pitt. Pittsburgh's 5-0. I think I said this during the week 6 recap. I was like, I don't know how many people are aware of this, but Pittsburgh's 5-0. And I don't know if they escape this weekend still undefeated. I mean, if they do, props to them and Pat Narduzzi, but um, kind of like the Bama situation, it's like Cal just lost a really emotional game that, quite frankly, they should have won. And how do they answer? Like, I don't know. I mean, do you get up off the mat really effectively if you're Cal? I have a ton of respect for Justin Wilcox coming off of the Chris Peterson coaching tree, but this is a Pitt team that's riding a wave of momentum, and this is a Cal team that just kind of had its guts ripped out in front of them on national television. So we'll see. Um, we are arriving at my first lock of the week. This is the game that I'm most confident about on this entire slate. And yep, I'll repeat the gimmick again. If that's the case, then the bet Purdue with every cent that you possess. Illinois, I think that the improvements people were expecting to see last year are happening this year, have happened. I've said that before. I'll say it again. I like this team. I think that this is an upper half Big Ten team. I think that they have shown it even in their loss to Penn State. And I think that Luke Altmaier and it's Zachary, right? This is going to bug me. I don't want to misspeak on this because I really like this team. That's Pat Bryant. Yeah, Zachary Franklin. Sorry, Zachary. Could be pronounced Zachary. I've never heard him say it. So if I'm misspeaking, Mr. Franklin, please feel free to reach out and correct me because I have heard both said on podcasts just like this one. So let us know because me and my rabid viewers would appreciate the clarity. But no, dude, him and Pat Bryant have been outstanding receiver options for Luke Altmaier. Luke Altmaier has all but eliminated, not completely, but like the frequency in which he is making mistakes, the way that he was in turnovering the ball, turnovering turning over the ball. Good Lord, that one whooped my ass. Turning over the ball like he did last year. He's course corrected in a big way. And throwing very efficiently. The line is minus 23, and I'd probably hammer it the whole way home because Purdue, I said this during my week 6 recap, they were on quit watch going into week 6. I think we're there. And I know that a lot of people probably wouldn't share this opinion, but I think if they keep having the results they've been having for the past 2 weeks, they might be shopping for a new head coach by the end of the season, which sounds crazy considering how recently they made their hire. So, again, nothing against the Boilermakers. I did misspeak a few weeks ago, and I mentioned Jeff Brom being the head coach, and that is incorrect. That Jeff Brom is the new head coach at Louisville. So my apologies to Jeff Brom, Purdue, and the Louisville Cardinals, who ironically enough are playing in the next game on this list, but they're not it's not a ranked matchup anymore, unfortunately, because Louisville lost to SMU last week. RIP to the Cards. We will kind of circle back to this in a little bit, but scrolling down, looking for our next matchup, Arizona at BYU. Arizona is such a flux team right now that like they do something really cool, like beat Utah, then lose to Kansas State in convincing fashion. And now they're taking on an unranked and top 15 ranked BYU team. And I'm just supposed to know what's going to happen. Okay. Vegas likes BYU -4. For those of us in the room, if you've been paying attention to my podcast, or if you just know Vegas betting trends in general, know that that means BYU is basically a 1-point favorite on a neutral field. Cool. I'm not touching this game with a 10-foot pole. I can't trust Arizona to be at its floor, let alone ceiling, week to week. BYU is a team that has largely been untested in Big 12 play. And that's the thing, is that they've played close games in conference play, just not against teams that should be playing close games against. And they've managed to stay unbeaten, and that rank looks really great by their name. I just, in this conference that is just so hectic right now, I have no idea who I trust. So we're going to avoid it. Mississippi State's losing to Georgia. I'm sorry if this is coming to a shock to any Mississippi State fans to hear. The line is Georgia -34. I'm going to say that again. The line is Georgia -34. Fuck it. I'll take the Bulldogs to cover. And I do mean the Mississippi State Bulldogs, not the Georgia Bulldogs. Um, why not? We'll do it for the Vine, right? Tennessee hosting Florida after a heartbreaking loss on the road against Arkansas last week. I covered that game in depth in my week 6 recap. Does Tennessee answer, right? This is kind of the same thing as Missouri, as Bama. It's as oh god, who was I just talking about? Blanking. As Cal. Yeah. So I'll say this. Florida has exhibited decent pass rush. Tennessee's offensive line is good, but maybe not as good as people expected. Their run game is great. Florida's run defense has been terrible. Florida's two-headed quarterback snake is actually playing pretty efficiently. Is this the same team that got demolished by Miami in week 1, or is this a new team? Is it getting better week to week? I don't know. I don't know if the competition they faced as of late is really enough for me to feel strongly about it. Mississippi State and UCF, well, let's rewind a little bit. Mississippi State is not a great football team. UCF, on the other hand, lied to me and convinced me that it was a good football team until I realized that Rick Roofed defenses don't play pass defense. I was just as shocked as you to discover that. And so Florida carved them up. And I was over here going to that game thinking about everything RJ Harvey was going to do against this terrible Florida run defense, and it just didn't matter. So this is important for Josh Heupel and this Tennessee team. Okay, they're suffering with some injuries at receiver. They absolutely should win this game at home. The line is minus 14.5 for Tennessee. The over-under 56.5. I mean, I want to take them to cover. I like this Tennessee team. I want Tennessee to be good again. I want there to be more factors in the SEC to sort of introduce parity back into that conference in a way that hasn't really existed in quite some time. So I would take Tennessee in this one. It's just is Florida legitimately improving? Is it a paper tiger kind of situation? I don't know. But yeah, give me the Vols, right? All right, biggest game of the week right here. Okay, 2 biggest games of the week right here. And also where my next weekly locks come into play. So let's talk about it, all right? The Buckeyes of Ohio State are going on the road to Autzen Stadium in Eugene, Oregon to play the 3rd-ranked Oregon Ducks. This is 2 versus 3. This has been circled on people's calendars since last year, okay? This game is legitimately the first true test against a competent opponent that either of these teams has faced. That much in and of itself is indisputable. Okay. What I think is in dispute right now is this really a top 5 matchup? Now, what do I mean by that? Okay. I'm a Washington fan. My hatred for the team of Oregon should come as no surprise to anybody, but this is not an I hate Oregon thing. This is an I have not been convinced by Oregon that they are worthy of the number next to their name. Okay. Do I think they're a top 25 team? Absolutely. Right? Do I think they're a top 15 team? Probably. Do I think they're a top 5 team that's going to host Ohio State and the $20 million roster or whatever it was that they're bringing back this year and win? Well, Vegas says that Ohio State's a 3-point favorite. And I'm taking Ohio State to cover and win this game. Why is that, though? Oregon absolutely has the talent to beat most teams on its schedule and beat them soundly. They haven't done that as convincingly as I would like to see from a team of this caliber. Like for instance, last year, like admittedly, if you're a sane Husky fan playing Oregon in either game, either the regular season 1 or the Pac-12 championship, you looked at what that team was and what it was doing to its opponents, and you're like, this is a big game. Like this is an opponent that we cannot toil with. Like we have to be on our A game. Thankfully, we were both times, right? Came out with our best knockout punches and they landed time after time. But Oregon absolutely was everything last year that they're being hyped up to be this year. I just don't think that they are everything this year that they're being hyped up to be. Dylan Gabriel is making some very questionable decisions. Dylan Gabriel is not pushing the ball downfield. Outside of Tez Johnson, your wide receiver room, which I heard Duck fans in the offseason saying was going to be the best in the nation, if not contending for it with the team they're playing this weekend, they're not really doing anything. Also, this Ohio State secondary with Denzel Burke leading it are fantastic, and you have undersized receivers at Oregon. I mean, from a physical standpoint, Ohio State matches up better in almost all facets of the game, except in the trenches, namely Oregon's defensive line taking on Ohio State's offensive line. A lot of people last year looked at Oregon's defensive line from a futures perspective, saying this team is building itself to be essentially an SEC team in the trenches on the West Coast. And from the defensive side of the ball, I totally agree. Offense has suffered some injuries and been struggling with it and really kind of not establishing themselves with that level of reputation, but the defensive line has been fantastic. Against who is a question, right? But I mean, people can ask the same thing about Ohio State because they haven't exactly played any world beaters. So where do I fall in this? Like, why am I so definitively choosing Ohio State? Well, I have a news for you, Ducks. It's not because you're my team's biggest rival. It's because Ohio State hasn't had the same slip-ups that you have against mediocre competition. Ohio State isn't making the same mistakes. Okay, I mean, Oregon fans will point out, Will Howard's throwing interceptions. Yeah, but he didn't throw them in crucial downs and distance in the red zone. Okay, there was a lot more green between the catcher and thrower, right, in his situations. Although I suppose you could argue that there was still for you guys because the end zone was painted green, if I'm not mistaken, last week. But anyway, no, if there is a way that Oregon wins this game, it is because their defensive front seven is able to overpower an Ohio State offensive line that was a crucial sticking point for their team last year that people are claiming is improved this year, but they haven't really faced anybody to kind of walk away and say, I believe it, right? That said, every other aspect of this Ohio State team, I like more than this Oregon team. So if I'm hedging my bets on, is the line of scrimmage going to be the deciding point between these teams, given the fact that everywhere else I favor one team over the other? I don't know if I'm hedging my bets on that, right? Like I'm gonna stay true to the team that I just legitimately like better in most, if not all, aspects of the game, and that's Ohio State. So Duck fans can hate me. They probably did already. That's fine. The feeling is mutual with love. Okay. So yeah, that's my second best bet of the week. That is my coin toss of, I think it could go either way, but I'm going to side with the team that I feel more warm and fuzzy about going into this game, and that is the Ohio State Buckeyes. The next game is my last lock of the week, and this is I have no idea what's going to happen here. And I'm so happy that I have no idea what's going to happen here because Ole Miss is going on the road to Baton Rouge to take on the LSU Tigers in Tiger Stadium in a night game. Here's why this game made my locks. Not just because of what happened last year, the high-scoring, crazy affair that it was. Not just because of that, but because Ole Miss is a road favorite of -3.5 points, which means that they aren't even a full point favorite in a neutral environment. So basically, Vegas is telling you that you take away Tiger Stadium, and this is a coin toss. right? Or sorry, I have that backwards, right? This means that they are almost a touchdown favorite in a neutral site, okay? Almost a touchdown favorite against LSU on a neutral site or at a neutral site. Well, here's the problem. It's not at a neutral site. It is at Tiger Stadium. And there's a stat that I wanted to clarify before I started the show tonight. And it's this. If you had to ask yourself right now, what is LSU's record in night games at Tiger Stadium, what would you say? Let me tell you. Since 1960, LSU is 231 and 61 and 4, almost an 80% win percentage at night in Tiger Stadium, compared to a 29 and 26 and 3 record during the day over that span. Since 2000, LSU is 65 and 6 in night games, and head coach Les Miles is 40 and 2. By the way, Brian Kelly, current LSU head coach, is undefeated in night games at LSU. Most of those 6 wins, right? 2 of them coming from Les Miles, as you can see. The other 4, one comes from Ed Orgeron, losing the shoe throw incident, I believe it was, to Florida. And then the other 3 are Nick Saban. Yeah. So, even though you look at metrics and Ole Miss should run away with this game, the 3.5 shouldn't be that big. Or sorry, it shouldn't be that small. Phrasing. But it is for a reason. Because I'm taking LSU to upset Ole Miss at home in Tiger Stadium at night, not because I feel it, but because history demands it. Okay? Give me the Tigers. All right? Do we have any more ranked games? Yes, we have the night slate. So, Kansas State on the road in Boulder, taking on the Fighting Deons and the Colorado Buffaloes. All right? This game, I love this game. I think Avery Johnson is going to put up ridiculous numbers. I think Shadur Sanders is going to put up ridiculous numbers in this game. K-State pass defense hasn't been great. Colorado, their offense is Shadur Sanders passing to his litany of weapons. They have even implemented a little bit of a run game in past 2 weeks. Crazy, I know. K-State, not the best pass rushing team, but Colorado, one of the worst pass rush susceptible offensive lines in the country. This is going to be madness. All right. Kansas State's currently favored by 3.5, right? So kind of like Ole Miss. That means they'd be about a touchdown favorite on a neutral site or at a neutral site. Almost 10 points at home. And I've been to a home game at Kansas State, and I can tell you that environment is a bit underrated. And so it might actually go, that number might actually go up a little bit. But how do I feel about this one? Look, as far as who's going to win, my heart tells me Kansas State. My brain tells me Kansas State. My heart tells me that this is going to be a great game, that if you're not watching it, you might end up regretting it. And I legitimately don't know. Like, Colorado is undefeated in Big 12 play. I'm sorry if I just divulge earth-shattering news to anybody. Colorado is undefeated in Big 12 play, which means they are a contender for the conference championship. And if they're a contender for the conference championship in the year 2024, where we are seeing the birth of the 12-team playoff, that means that they are a college football playoff contender. Sorry, my son just peeked in on me. Yeah, wild words to be saying this day and age, but saying them we are nonetheless. Boise State going on the road against Hawaii. Boise State is basically Ashton Genty go kill. They are 20.5-point favorites on the road. Hawaii, one of the two top best run defenses in the Mountain West. Boise State's getting ready to play them both in back-to-back weeks. So basically that means that Ashton Genty's only going to put up like 195 rushing yards as opposed to like the 11 bajillion per game that he's currently putting up. I think Boise State's going to be fine in this spot. I think Hawaii loses, obviously. I don't know if Boise covers the 20.5-point spread. It's going to be a big time jump. Hawaii's going to be at home. I just think Boise's the better team and will be able to overcome whatever hardships or left hooks that Hawaii does serve up. And that concludes our breakdown of the ranked matchups for week 7. So let's kind of go skim back over this and talk about some games. Very interested in the Wisconsin-Rutgers game. Okay, so Rutgers does go on the road and lose to Nebraska like we predicted last week. Wisconsin answers the call of my triage analogy and body bagged Purdue like I expected. Rutgers currently favored by 2.5 points at home, which means that Wisconsin's actually favored on a neutral field by about a half point. Over under 43.5. I think that number's adequately placed right there, given what we've seen from these two teams so far. If I have to give a lean, I'd probably actually go Rutgers. In spite of what Wisconsin has been able to do with their backup quarterback. I think Rutgers just might be a little bit more physical at the line of scrimmage, especially given that their bread and butter is a rushing attack with Kyle Monangai. It's just kind of how I'm feeling about that right now. Georgia Tech at North Carolina. I think North Carolina is kind of chalked right now. I'm taking Georgia Tech. Let's keep going. I already talked about Washington, Iowa. Basically, I think that Iowa is just a worse version of Michigan. And if Washington's able to beat Michigan, I don't understand Iowa being favored by 3. The line's actually been bet towards Washington. It was 3.5 when it opened. So not a huge amount of money going Washington's way, but enough to shift it slightly to the point where it's basically a coin toss game on a neutral field. I wanted so badly to make this a best bet, but every time that I do that to Washington, they lose. Maybe one day I'll grow a pair and I'll try to actually break the trend. But today is not that day. I'm gonna stay off of this one. I'm just gonna say out loud for everybody to hear that I think Washington wins this game. I don't see how people could see what happened against Michigan last week and think that Iowa's any better equipped to exceed what Michigan was able to do against this team. If Washington does lose, though, it's because they beat themselves. And I don't mean that in like the salty fan way. I mean like unnecessary penalties, not converting in the red zone, like, questionable clock management from Jedfish, which we have seen so far. And play calling as well, just kind of getting out of his groove with no real external factors affecting that. So we'll see. Just me drinking the Kool-Aid there. Let's go. I did mention the Louisville Virginia game. I still like this Louisville offense, favored by 7.5 on the road right now, over under 54.5. Virginia does have an offense. Louisville's defense is pretty good, even though SMU, who I think people are kind of waking up to the idea of them being like an actual contender in the ACC, which I did touch on during my week 6 recap. I just think Louisville's the better team. I think that Virginia is not terrible, but it's not beat Louisville good. So yeah, give me the card. Cincinnati at UCF. I'm taking Cincinnati in this one too, even though UCF is favored by 3. I think Brennan Sorsby, the quarterback for Cincinnati, is doing a lot of good things. He's distributing the ball well. UCF has a terrible pass defense. I think the line being 58.5 is pretty good. I think Cincinnati's going to be putting up more of those points than UCF is. Continuing on. This Washington State Fresno State game, right? Like, I know that Fresno State really kind of let me down last week. And Washington State is still just a juggernaut in terms of offense with John Mateer at quarterback. Wazoo favored by 3.5 on the road right now. Give me Wazoo. I do think Fresno State has the ability to answer. I think that any team that had been coached by Jeff Tedford at any point in his tenure before he retired is a sound team. As far as the leadership in the building right now, I can't really speak intelligently on it. I like this Fresno State offense with Mikey Keene under center. I just like Washington State better. I just think the vibes at Wazoo are better right now. Um, so yeah, this is totally a vibes driven pick, but give me Wazoo to win and cover against Fresno. Um, there was one more that I wanted to mention. Oh yeah, does Minnesota take out both LA schools in 2 straight weeks? I think yes. And if so, does that mean Minnesota owns the state of California? I don't know. I don't know. Hey, so let's take a look real quick at the locks board. Current record is 7-11. Last week it was 6-9. I haven't really paid any like forward thought to what number combination I could come up with this coming weekend, or at the conclusion of this coming weekend. That would also be kind of silly. I just hope that we tie it up. All right, or sorry, get to 10-11. Because I like these picks: Illinois over Purdue, Ohio State over Oregon, LSU over Ole Miss. Come on, I need triple greens in here again, okay? We started strong in weeks 1 and 2, and it has been a train wreck ever since. So let's just get right in a great way in week 7. We had a bunch of chaos last week. Let's... All right, fuck it. Let's go for more chaos. If the whole thing is just red chiclets all day, I don't care. I don't care. I'm an agent of chaos. I'm an agent of chaos. That said, it's time to say goodbye. I got plans for the evening. I got a friend in town. We're gonna go out tonight. We're gonna partake in some. I'm not gonna say what I was gonna say. It would be very out of pocket, but we're gonna engage in some fun and frivolous activities that may or may not involve reptiles. All I'm gonna say. But I appreciate anybody that does watch and listen. Please like and subscribe the video, or like the video, subscribe to the channel. I will be getting better. I promise to continue promising to get better at posting these a little bit more routinely. I think as engagement kind of increases, that might, affect my motivation. Right now, I'm just kind of motivated by wanting to essentially talk about this because I love the game of college football and I want to just blab. No, I'm not trying to extort you, okay? It's not like, under penalty of me not making these unviewed videos anymore, like and subscribe so I will start posting them more routinely. No, that's probably not going to happen. Anywho, I can't wait to see you late Saturday night. If you subscribe to Lucid Creamin at twitch.tv, you can find me there live talking about the games and probably going to be watching some live as well. I know we talked about potentially doing some more live reaction videos to the Washington games on the channel. Unfortunately, I will be working Saturday morning because the United States government hates Saturdays in the fall. So hopefully I make it home in time for kickoff at 11 for the Washington, Iowa game. If not, I will be very sad, but I will still probably just be watching on my phone. So anyway, everybody stay safe out there. Any viewers from Florida, my parents are residents, and they're doing great, but I know not so many people are right now. So thoughts and prayers in the aftermath of Milton. Still kind of tearing things up a little bit there as we speak, but it's a rebuilding time. It's time for everybody to come together and really just kind of look out for your neighbors. Okay, so if you see people in need, please do whatever you can. Just thoughts and prayers to everybody out there. I will catch you guys Saturday evening. Please, 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 please be safe this weekend, and I will see you guys back here next time.